Hello, everyone.
Hi, welcome to Mental Health IRL, where we strive to normalize mental health and healing. I am your co-host, Dr. TJ.
And I am your co-host, Marcine Weatherall.
Welcome back. This episode, every episode is a special episode to us.
It is.
This episode, we have a special guest, Miss LaTasha Harris, and she's going to come to us and talk to us about her story in complicated grief.
Yes, it'll be amazing. And I'm going to let you meet with your special friend alone.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll tap in on the end, but I'll be watching from over there.
Yes.
All right.
Welcome back to Mental Health IRL. Thank you as we continue our series about women and mental health. We have a special guest with us today. We have Miss LaTasha Harris. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so glad that you agreed last minute to come in and be a part of the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Tasha and I have known each other since sixth grade. And we have been a part of each other's lives, been each other's support systems. We have cried on each other's shoulders and patted each other's backs.
Yes.
Right. And so I wanted to invite her in today just for her to share a little bit about her story. And what we really want to talk about today is complicated grief. So what is complicated grief? Complicated grief is when you lose someone, whether that's through death or maybe they've moved away or what have you, but you lose someone and you miss their presence or you mourn their presence, but you're also glad they're gone. And that mixture of feelings can make the grieving process that much more difficult because you don't know how to feel. And you feel guilty for feeling one way and guilty for not feeling another way and all of that. And so, Tasha, I thank you for agreeing to talk about such a deep subject. And I'm just going to let you begin your story where you choose to begin it.
Okay.
I want to take a moment to introduce you to our two sponsors. First up, we have Personally She T-shirt and apparel brand. It's the brand that helps you feel seen. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. It's one of my favorite shirts of the moment. Thinking bigger, dreaming bigger, seeking bigger, attaining bigger. It's a shirt that motivates me and I feel empowered when I wear it. And then also I feel like I'm sending out good vibes to others when I'm wearing it. And that's what Personally She is all about. It's about being proud of who you are. So I thank you, Personally She, for sponsoring our episode and being one of our first sponsors and being a key sponsor. If you would like to order anything, see what Personally She has to offer, all you have to do is go to their website, personallyshe.com. And if you put in the code Dr. TJ, all that will be below, then you will get a nice little discount on your items. We appreciate you, Personally She. Thank you. Our other sponsor today is Wonderful Memories Event Center. It is located at 4301 Fair Park Boulevard in Fort Worth, Texas. It is a great space. It is large. They have one huge room and one less huge room. They have a bridal suite. They have a VIP lounge area. Marcine's friend got married there. I've been to a couple of adult game days there. It is a great space. So if you are in the DFW area, if you're in the Fort Worth Tarrant County area, and you are looking for a place to host an event and a place that is owned by people who will take care and make sure that you and your guests feel valued, then please visit Wonderful Memories Event Center, located at 4301 Fair Park Boulevard in Fort Worth.
Well, since Tashara mentioned we met each other in sixth grade, I'll start there because that was the year that things became complicated for me. I grew up in a very blended household. My grandmother raised her 6 kids, and then she took in my mother's 5. My older sister passed when she was 2. And so it created a very weird dynamic in our family where everybody was super protective. because my sister drowned in a bathtub. And so they watched our every move. And my uncles are more like brothers to me than uncles, because we all lived in the house and we grew up together. So 6th grade, when I met Tashara, is when it got complicated, because that's when I started meeting kids who had traditional 2-parent households. Nobody else had a household like mine. So I'd come to school and they'd be like, your grandmother dropped you off, or, you know, I dressed strange, right? Because they had these young hip moms and I had a grandmother who was like doing the best she could, right? And so the question never came about until then. People would be like, well, where's your mom? And at that time, my mom had been in and out of prison most of my life. She had been a heroin addict probably since the age of 14. And so we didn't have the best relationship, but in 6th grade is when she got out of prison and she ended up kind of getting on her feet. She got an apartment, and so I would go and stay with her. I stayed school breaks with her. I would stay, spend summer break with her, and then...
Never knew that.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, so in
I
the
just had a
summer...
light bulb moment.
Right,
Okay.
so that's why you guys never saw me during the summer. She had this apartment that had a swimming pool, so we would swim every day, my cousins and I, and it was amazing until one day I was snooping, going through her drawers, and I found this pamphlet that said, Living with AIDS. And I was like, well, we talked about AIDS in health class. Well, why would she have this? And so I asked her about it. And so she told me, she was like, yes, she had been diagnosed with HIV like maybe 6 years prior. But at that point, it had developed into full-blown AIDS. And so she said, you know, she shared needles with people for many years. Just, you know, lived that street life, right? And so things changed, you know, from that moment. And so I started to try to spend more time with her and like strengthen our relationship. And in about 8th grade,
So this was 6th and 7th grade.
6th and 7th grade.
So before you move on to 8th grade, in your role with your relation, in your role in your with your mom, were you allowed to be a daughter, or did you have to be a caretaker, or was it more like a friendship?
At that time, a daughter.
Okay.
And a friendship. We had very candid conversations. Like, I always tell people, my mom was the realest person I ever met in my life. She was probably the most intelligent person I ever met, because she had a lot of book sense, even though she dropped out of school at a young age. But she was so street smart, because she had been on the streets since she was 14. And so a lot of the things that she was telling me, you know, I was just trying to soak it all in, because I always wanted to be around her. And so
it was a healthy relationship at that point.
Very healthy, very healthy at that point. And so the beginning of 8th grade, she went back to prison. She relapsed, and I don't know what she did to get arrested, but she ended up going back to prison. And I stopped talking to her. I wouldn't write her. I wouldn't go and visit, because she had promised me that she wasn't going to get in trouble anymore. So I made it through 8th grade. And
what was that like? Because I don't feel like you shared it as your friend during that time.
I did.
We didn't know about any of that.
No,
and it was the normal middle school angst, back and forth, mean girl kind of things going on.
Right.
And yet you had this whole real life situation.
So a lot of that I remember, but I don't, because I really didn't care about what y'all had going on. Because like, I was dealing with real life stuff. Like, we literally used to like get up on the weekends and go look for her when we couldn't find her, and like literally be on the south side at motels, knocking on doors, going like, I've been to so many drug houses, dope houses, looking for her and dragging her out. So that stuff that y'all were going through, it was like, oh, that's cute, but like, I got real stuff going on
I
over here.
had another friend during the same time, I'm not going to say their name, but I had another friend during the same time who was experiencing some of the same things. And I remember us doing some of those things that you described. And yet I still I knew about the world because of this friendship, and didn't know I had a whole nother friend that was going through the same thing.
So some of the kids knew, because one day we were riding the bus and we were coming down Rosedale, which is a popular street in Fort Worth, but it's known for like drug activity and sex work. And I will never forget one of my friends said, "Oh my God, guys, that's Tasha's mom. That's Tasha Dorsey's mom on the corner." And everybody was like, "Oh, your mom's a prostitute. Your mom's a drug addict." And I remember like sinking in the seat. And my friend Crystal, that's how she and I became friends. She came and sat in the seat with me. And she just put her arm around me and she was like, "I have family members that are out there sometimes too, so don't be embarrassed. Don't be ashamed." And that's literally how we became
I got goosebumps.
friends.
I got goosebumps. Marcine's in the audience right now, y'all. You said you got goosebumps too? Yes.
Yeah, and she is probably the only person, other than the person who blurted it out, they were the only two who knew. And Crystal found out that day because of that moment. So from that moment on, I never opened my mouth to anybody. Like, I don't care what was going on. And just in our household, we were taught you don't discuss what goes on in the house.
Don't air that dirty
outside.
laundry.
So yeah, I would just come to school. I mean, there were nights people kicked in our door looking for her. You know, shootouts on the street, like real danger, like literally kicking in the door, putting shotgun to my grandmother, shotgun to my uncle's chest, like, you know, because my mom would like hustle these men and steal money from them, and you know, just in the street, living a street life. But people knew us and they knew where we lived, and so our family was in danger. And so,
and y'all kept that secret real well.
Yeah, so imagine getting up, having to go to school the next morning when you were up in the middle of the night because some dope dealer just kicked in the door or somebody shot your house up.
Because I'm just having these memories of it's. I'm sorry, y'all, but your house was one of the few houses my mom would let me go to and spend the night.
That was after that.
Oh, that was
so
after.
So that's when we lived in Poly.
Okay.
You came to Forest Hill.
I was like, my mom, because she didn't know what was going on in my other friend's house.
None of that was going on during that time.
I was like, y'all kept that real secret.
So fast forward to 8th grade, she goes back to prison. But then the beginning of 9th grade, she's released on a compassionate release. She had ovarian cancer. And so they said, you know, you have full-blown AIDS, your immune system is so weak, we're just going to let you go home and be with your family. I will say that those were the worst days of my life. She was 39, very bitter. She had a lot of beautiful hair. All her hair fell out. Her eyes started to change colors, like they just started getting lighter and lighter, like a light hazel. Her teeth had fallen out. I remember like bed sores, like, and my mom, people that knew my mom, you wouldn't even know she was on drugs because she looked good. She just was a naturally attractive woman. And so she was losing her hair, losing everything, and then she started losing her vision and motor functions. And so she just would lash out. Like, she was so mean to me, my brother, my cousins, everybody. And then we couldn't take care of her. She tried to go to the bathroom on her own, and she'd fall in a tub, or she'd fall and hurt herself. So we ended up having to put her in a nursing home. And so it was like, get up, go to school, and push through, even though you only probably got 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And finally, she went to the nursing home, and I'll never forget that weekend. It was my birthday weekend, and so I was supposed to go to Six Flags with some friends. Came home from school. My sister and my sister-in-law were waiting for me to take me to the nursing home, and they were like, "Yeah, she's not gonna make it through the weekend." And that Sunday morning, my grandmother woke up. She had a dream. She was like, "My baby came to me in a dream. I gotta get to her." So we went to the nursing home, and when we got there, my grandmother grabbed my mom's hand. My mom opened her eyes, and my grandmother said, "You can rest. I got them." Referring to me and my younger brother. And my mom, like, opened her eyes. She took a breath, and she just died right there.
Wow.
And this was Sunday, March 10th. The next day was my birthday. And I remember asking, could I miss school? And my grandmother was like, "Yeah, you can miss school because it's your birthday." But everybody else in the house had to go. Like, all the other kids had to go to school. And so I went back to school the following day. And I remember, like, somebody approaching me, like, "Oh, I heard your mom died." and I was crying. And so the counselors called the house. And I got in trouble when I got home. Because it was, why are you at the school discussing our family business? And now as an adult, I'm thinking, why would you send a kid to school? Like, it's literally, my mom died the day before I turned 15. This is a 15-year-old. Why would I even have to go to school?
And then be upset because you were crying.
Yeah, like, because we weren't allowed to emote.
Right.
And it was always this guilt that, like, if I cried for my mom, then that meant I was disrespecting my grandmother who raised me. And so when you brought up the topic of complicated grief, I was like, that's the best way to describe it. Because I would hide in my room and cry for my mom. Because nobody else in my family understood. They felt like, well, she abandoned y'all. She didn't raise you. She chose drugs. But I'm like, she had her own issues. She had her own trauma that she was dealing with.
And you understood that as a 15-year-old.
And I even understood that as a kid because of the talks that we would have when I stayed with her. Yeah.
Because of those good years.
The nights when she would tell me, like, my oldest sister who passed, my mom got raped and was molested, and that's how she conceived my sister. So it's like, you have this baby, everybody labels you as fast, even though you were assaulted.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have this baby, your mom is babysitting, your aunt is babysitting for you, and your 2-year-old dies. My mom was 15 when my sister died. She was 13 when she had her, 15 when she died. So she literally had her own trauma that nobody helped her.
She had the trauma of even getting pregnant, then the trauma of living with it, and the stigma that was wrongly attached to it.
In the 70s as a teen mom, and then your child dies.
And then your child dies.
So I understood because I had those conversations with my mom. And I knew things that happened to her that nobody else knew. So the compassion, and then just honestly me missing my mom, but I couldn't.
You couldn't show that.
I couldn't show that because me showing that I love my mom, I miss my mom, was interpreted as I don't appreciate
what you have.
My
You
grandmother.
don't appreciate this woman who's been there for you,
the mama who's raising me every day.
and the mama who has done all the hard work and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, you get to go have fun with your mom in summers and weekends or whatever, but I'm here every day
Doing the hard work.
Right.
And so that part was really rough, right? Because I just had to hide it, right? You just suck it up and you keep going. And then a year and a half later, my grandmother who was raising me, my mom, my senior year of high school, she died.
Were you allowed to grieve her? And how was that grief different?
No. I was allowed to with friends. With my family, and there are members of my family still to this day that will not talk about my grandmother. Like, if I mention her, they'll change the subject. They haven't even processed it and dealt with it enough to where they could help me do anything.
Wow.
And so I remember one night, maybe like 3 weeks after she died, I was sitting in the living room by myself going through a photo album. And I was just looking at pictures, and I was looking at these pictures, and I was crying. Now my sister walked in on me, and she said, "You miss her?" And I'm thinking, "Yeah, it does." And she's like, "Oh, okay," and just walked out the room. And like went to her room, closed the door, and we didn't talk about it.
Well, we talk about, Marcina and I have talked before about within your support system, sometimes people want to help, but they don't have the capacity, and that's what that sounded like.
Yeah.
She acknowledged your emotion.
Yep.
She acknowledged what you're feeling, but she couldn't hold that space with you.
They were so hurt themselves. I looked at my older siblings, my aunt, my uncle. They were like superheroes in my eyes growing up, right? Because they did everything. They made everything possible for us. So to see them weak, like my brother Adrian was like a giant in my eyes.
I know.
So for me to be this 17-year-old girl, I'm looking at the man who I think is the strongest man in the world. He's a pillar of strength, and he couldn't make it through the day without his mama. He could not even talk about her. I remember at her funeral, they, instead of letting people view the body in the sanctuary, they took the casket out into the foyer and people viewed the body as they left the church. Me and him sat in the sanctuary. He wouldn't leave. And I said, let's go out there, Adrian. He said, I can't see her like that. That can't be the last memory I have of my mama. And I sat in the sanctuary with him, and I remember asking my sister's best friend, could you take me home? And she said, you're not going to go to the cemetery? And I was like, mentally, I knew because of how hard it was, seeing my mom physically die. And then I watched my grandmother when she passed out. And I knew she was dead on the way to the hospital. I was like, I can't see them lower that casket in the ground. And nobody in my family said, hey, Tasha, what are you doing? Where are you going? Get in the limo and go with the family. They were just, everybody was such a mess themselves.
They were in their own isolated
Yeah.
country.
And so it's like, I have these two losses back to back. And the attitude was, you gotta keep going. Like, you gotta go to school tomorrow. Yeah, mama died. Yeah, that's rough. You gotta go to school. And then you gotta get a job. You gotta get an after school job because we need help. And you need money for things because you're senior high school. And so it was a lot. But what made it complicated was not being able to really express the grief that I had for losing my biological mom, but then there was also a sense of relief because my mom got into so much stuff. My mom got stabbed before, like so many things happened to her that it was almost like, I'm glad she's gone. Even though I miss her, she's no longer suffering. I would see my mom on her knees praying to God, crying at night, like, take this addiction from me. I would see her sick when she couldn't get to drugs, throwing up, cramping, like, so a lot of that stuff I remember, and I started to feel relief. Like, well, at least she's not here suffering anymore. You know, at least she's not having the complications she was having with AIDS. At least she's not, you know, going through the cancer anymore. And it's hard to express that and be heard and understood because what it sounds like is you're glad your mom's dead.
Right.
And it's like, no, I'm not glad that she died. I'm just glad that she's no longer suffering.
Right.
And then honestly that there's some relief for my family.
I was saying that I was just about to say that yes, your relief, she's no longer suffering, but also your family is not suffering, at least not in the same way anymore.
Yeah, because it was a lot of, I can remember as a young kid, she'd come over and we'd be so excited until she got ready to leave and she took everything. Like, Tashara knows this about me because we've been friends since 6th grade. Everybody who knows me knows that Purple Rain is my favorite movie. Prince is my favorite artist. My mom used to steal our Betamax VCR and all the movies, but she always left Purple Rain.
Wow.
She would always leave my movie. And that movie has such sentimental value to me because of that. But it became very bittersweet because, like, we go find her, we'd drag her out of drug house, take her home, clean her up, and then in a couple of days when she needed to get what she needed, she steal everything. And so there was a sense of relief that, okay, I can get a new bag. You know, my uncles / brothers were like, I got a new car and I don't have to worry about her stealing it.
I used to have a friend, and they said they don't know a lot of old TV shows. And they said, but they know all the old movies. They was like, well, you can steal a TV set. You can't steal a movie theater. And so they could go to the movies and watch things, but they couldn't keep a TV in the house because of family members. And so there are a lot of shows that they just
never saw.
Yeah.
And so I think for us, you know, the material things, that was some relief. I'm not gonna lie, because people work hard for what they have.
You don't have to hide your things.
Yeah, but the main thing was the safety, because
I busted down your doors and stuff.
Yeah, like the first time I ever traveled on a plane, we went to Denver because she had stolen like $10,000 from this guy, and he was looking for her. He literally had a bounty on her head in the streets. And me, her, my grandmother, my sister, we flew to Denver to hide out. And we had a cousin up there that was my mom's favorite cousin. and he used to use, but when he got to Denver, he got clean. So when we got there, my mom was like, hey, I need to, get what I need. And he's like, oh, I don't do that anymore. He was like, I could maybe get you some weed. That's about the strongest thing I can get. And she was like deep in a heroin addiction at this time. So she's like, no, that's not strong enough. She left. She called a taxi company, and took a taxi back to the airport and flew back to Dallas and left us in Denver.
Wow.
Because she had to get back to her drugs. And so when she got back, in a few weeks, the man found her, stabbed her multiple times, but because she was so high on heroin, she didn't bleed out.
Right.
But like, she was in the hospital for a few weeks as a Jane Doe. Like, we had to go and identify her body. Like, my brother Adrian always jokes.
This was all before you were 18.
I was 4 when that happened.
Wow.
Yeah. And I can remember vividly because I never seen snow before. So when we got to Denver and the snow is up to here, I thought this is the coolest place I'd ever been. But
that's a complicated memory.
Yeah, the trauma of, okay, I got to go on an airplane, and flights were expensive back then. But she had just robbed somebody of $10,000, so she had money to spend.
Right.
And to get there and just get left and get stranded there. But, and then to come back and she got stabbed. And now she's in the hospital because this guy tried to kill her because she stole his money. So those are the type of safety concerns that we would have to deal with. So when she died, everybody was sad, but there was a sense of relief because it's like, now we don't have to worry about getting these phone calls to come to the hospital or to come to the jail or, what she's gonna steal. It was a sense of relief, but sadness at the same time, but nobody wanted to admit that they were relieved.
So, because I know you've been on this lifelong journey of healing, who or what has been your support back then, currently? Like, what's your support system look like, or what did it look like?
So, initially, it was my friends. And it's wild to say that because we were all kids, right? But like, you would come. I remember Toya used to be at my house every weekend before my grandmother passed. So after she passed, of course she's gonna be there. My friend Marlena was there. My boyfriend at the time, who we would not name, he was there a lot. His family. It was more friend support than family. But then as I got older and my family started to heal, and then we started to lose more family members, then it became my siblings and my family. And now we can talk about it freely, and we can watch old home videos or share pictures with one another. But prior to about 5 years ago, would have never happened. My brother Darrell, and he's like super manly, Marine. I probably got my first real hug from him 10 years ago. Because I was in shock. Because the way the men in my family were, like, other than Adrian, and my Uncle Cedric, he's very affectionate. If you hug them, their response is they punch you in the arm right here. Try to hug them, you get a punch. And so him, like, hugging me and just holding me, I was like a little kid.
I'm about to say, was that little
yeah,
Tasha?
I was that little girl that just wanted her big brother. And so we've all done so much work to like let go and to learn how to grieve properly. But
I love it.
It's my godmother, she stepped up like the day my grandmother died. She was at the house. So like, what do you need? She's like, you can. She tried to get me to move in with them. She's like, you just come live here with us.
And she meant it.
And she meant it. And it was a fight that I wouldn't come and live with her. And even to this day, when I got out the hospital a couple months ago, she's like, when they release you, get your bags and come to my house. So shout out to Debbie Smith.
Hey,
like
Smith, love you.
She is going to, and I don't care what you tell her. You could tell her you're all right till you blue in the face. She's going to stay on top of you and make sure you're all right. And so she was that support system back then and even now to this day, because she had a love and a respect for my grandmother. And so she felt like, I can never take her place, but I know the plans that this woman had for you. I know what she put into you. So let me step up and try and be that for you. And she has.
So as we wrap up, what are some closing thoughts, words that you would have for our audience when it comes to not even grief and complicated grief, but healing? Because I love that you said in the end, your family, they did their own healing work individually so that y'all can come back together as a family and heal. So what closing remarks would you have for our audience today?
Be patient with yourself. Like, you're human. Emote. I feel like in the Black community, the only emotion we're allowed to really express is anger. Like, we can be mad all day, but there's strength in crying. There's strength in saying, I need help. This is hard. And I feel like once we let go of the stigma of, mental health and getting help, more people would be whole. Like, I love my therapist, like, so much so I call her my auntie. And she's sick of me. I've referred so many people to her. I just feel like we don't have an outlet all the time. And like, I love the Lord, but going to Bible study and sitting in church every week may not be enough for everybody. So don't be afraid.
The gospel and mental health can go together.
They can go hand in hand. And I tell people all the time, if you had a toothache, you're going to go to the dentist, right? And you're going to see what you can do to stop that pain.
God sent therapists just like he
just
sent
like he
doctors,
sent the dentist.
Just like he sent lawyers, just like he sent anybody else who's here to help. God works through people.
I just have one thing that I
Come
think
on.
is
Y'all know we real authentic and casual in these
Right.
First of all, thank you for your courage. That was amazing. But I have one thing that I think is important, especially coming from a school district as educators. What educators need to know about our kids that are in school every day and they're not in a position to learn anything if they're going through the things that you went through in school, right? And there's this big debate right now in education on the importance of social emotional learning, the importance of mental health support systems in our school districts. What would have helped you, and what do educators need to know about kids walking in our schools every day that are dealing with daily trauma?
We all have our own bag of stuff.
Yes.
We all carry our own bag of stuff.
Yes.
So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes. Talk to the educators.
So my godmother, Debbie Smith, is an educator.
She is.
Long-time employee of Forward ISD, and I've watched this woman single-handedly change students' lives.
Man.
I wasn't even one of her students, but because of the education and background she has, she picked up on stuff very early on. 6th grade, she said, "Come here, baby, let me talk to you. There's something going on at home." And I'm like, another teacher, Michelle Benson, band director. I was the captain of the dance team, but I wasn't in the band, right? But she still took the time to say, "Come here, let me talk to you." I had a counselor, Donna Emerson, God rest her soul. This lady went all the way through my records, all the way back to elementary school. And it was amazing. I had visited the Child Study Center when I was really young.
Shout out to the Child Study Center.
Shout out to the Child Study Center. Because of all the drugs my mom was on, I was born addicted to heroin. And so they would give me morphine in my formula to wean me off of it. And so all of the stuff at the Child Study Center said, "Oh, this child is going to be mentally retarded. She's not going to be able to walk, talk, do anything on her own." And my counselor one day just sat down, because I had somebody from the Army trying to recruit me. And she was like, "No, honey, you're going to college." And she was like, no disrespect, we love the military. She was like, "But your plan is to go to college, and you can go." And so she opens this folder and she says, "This is what the study said about you." She said, "This child won't be able to walk, talk,
She
read."
pulled all your records.
Yeah, she said, "And you do it all so well."
You were in dance. We were in gifted and talented program.
Magnet program.
program. We got invited to do sister cities and
Yes.
be
We were Duke
ambassadors.
Yeah, we were
and
Duke Talent Search. for mathematically and verbally gifted kids, but I was the kid that said I couldn't talk. I was able to speak 3 languages.
You learned French
and Portuguese at college, but they said I would never be able to talk.
So you defied every barrier that was placed in front of you.
Because had it not been for all of those resources and those people who are continuing to fight the good fight like we are, school was your safe place.
Oh,
and I
absolutely.
always say this, and I mean it, is that kids who are receiving the love and support they need at home come to school to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Kids that do not receive the love and support they need at home come to school for love and support.
It was an escape.
Period.
For me.
Exactly.
Honest to
and
God,
so
was
I
an escape.
appreciate that.
Thank you,
Thank
Tasha.
you.
Thank you all once again for tuning into this episode of Mental Health IRL. Again, our goal is to normalize mental health and healing.
Remember,
be intentional.